What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to another Tuffy Talk live show, y'all. We are here rolling once again after a crazy weekend that just occurred for NC State and us here at Wolfpack Nation for sure. But if you've been with us before, you know the drill. Just like Nick, go ahead and jump into the comment section. Let us know your thoughts, questions, concerns, whatever, like what you want us to talk about, whatever it may be. We got myself, Layton Smith, Michael Tracy, Greg Legg from Tuffy Talk side. And we got the best NC State basketball account to follow per Big Game Boomer here with us. We are blessed to say the least. It took a lot of, we had to go through an agent who had to talk to an agent who had to talk to another agent who finally.
I think we just got him in an NIL deal too.
And then, we had to offer six figures to have this guy on here, y'all. So we are blessed to say the least to have with us Ryan Williams from Inside Pack Sports, y'all. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man.
Yep, always glad to be on here.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So obviously we got Nick. What's going on, Nick? Hope you're doing well. And yes, we're doing great and hope you are as well. Rusty in the comments, happy Monday. How about Trey freaking Turner, y'all? What a rep of NC State. Go Team USA. Absolutely. We'll be talking all about that here. But I mean, first of all, Greg, I got to give a shout out to you, man. We were talking about that pullover, man. That's definitely a nice one. A long sleeve. Gotta give a shout out to you there, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I got the $8 Ross special there over at Cary off Walnut Street a couple weeks ago when I was there. I can't pass up a cheap pullover. And just a little tidbit, it was $1 more than the Carolina version. So I think Ross knows what they're doing when they're doing their pricing. So
hey, there you go.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. But yeah, great. Kind of a weird weekend, I guess, right? For Pack Sports. We had, some postseason drop, what would we say? Letdown. I guess letdown would be the right word for that. And then we had some highs with softball and baseball got salvaged out of game. And then we had another postseason announcement. I guess it was last night or this morning with gymnastics. So I guess Ryan, we'll start with you. What was your positive and what was your negative take from the weekend?
I think my positive was probably for the softball team. They got their season sweep against Boston College. They've been through a lot of, firing their coach beginning of the season. Yeah, it's kind of weird. So we're still waiting to hear about that. But I think for those ladies, it was big to finally, get a season win or a series win. Baseball, they got their comeback win, nice comeback win, which was great to see because Virginia, they were talking their smack.
We'll talk about that too because that was a little redonkulous. But
and then just to steal that from them. But overall, it was a tough weekend.
Yeah. Especially when you're talking postseason, right? Like you can get over a loss, but when you're talking postseason losses that end your season, that's a tough one to swallow. But I'll jump over to you, Michael. Same thing for you. What were your highs and lows over the weekend?
Yeah, softball and baseball ended the weekend well. I will say I think it was Thursday or Friday. It may have gone to Saturday, but women's swimming ended up 5th, I think, in nationals. So that was another accomplishment there. But yeah, basketball, men's and women's, it's just tough.
Yep,
tough
and like
ending.
like Rusty said, maybe we can even throw Trey Turner there as a high with the NC State alumni. I mean, he had a heck of a hit that grand slam on Saturday night to lead Team USA over Venezuela, then hit 2 more last night, and he leads the WBC in home runs, I think, and I think he was tied for RBIs with 10. So he's at 4 home runs and he's got 10 RBIs, and most of that damage has been in the last couple of days. But again, we'll talk a bit more about that. I'll go with a high, and this is probably one that's kind of under the radar. Dom Fritton, again, another great outing for baseball. That's 3 in a row that he's had to start his season. Now, unfortunately, he got another no decision. But he held a really good Virginia team down this weekend, and the week before he held down Miami pretty well. So just give a shout out to the Pac-9 crew there for like the salvage, like we said, of the third game on Saturday.
Yep. And then for me, I mean, definitely, a huge positive for me, I would say, was Ed Scott's comeback on Saturday. I mean, obviously, he's been going through with wrestling, by the way, he's gone through such a funk, ever since really the Virginia Tech / UNC duel, and then he just didn't really look the same. But then finally on Saturday, after losing his first match, to come back and win 5 straight to get to 5th place in the NCAAs in a really tough class, and with a win over Bryce Andonian, who is a senior, was honestly a dark horse to win the national championship. I mean, you can't say enough about the fights, and just like I tweeted out, I mean, it really cemented his legacy in my eyes. I was like, dude, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I've been waiting for, is finally seeing Ed really take that next step. So huge happiness for him. And then the negative, I would I would probably look at women's basketball, just because of the fact that and I'll go ahead and put it out there that one of the reasons we did want to reach out to Ryan Williams is when we got wind that Macon and Ken's wouldn't be on here with us, we said, well, we need to bring in somebody else, because myself, Greg, and Michael Tracy did kind of a basketball recap for men's and women's basketball that'll be coming out this week. So we're like, well, we kind of want to bring somebody else on so that we're not talking about the same exact stuff that you will hear this week here. So let's talk a little bit about that, Ryan. I mean, obviously, I think that women's game was just kind of a microcosm of the whole season, where just how we ended it, Princeton went on a 9-0 run. I mean, there was like, literally, it looked like it was a win-loss ESPN chart that rivaled what UNC has had over the last years, where we were like at a 97.7% likelihood. We're up by 7 with like a minute and a half left, and then Princeton went in on a 9-0 run to take us out. And to me, it just looked like there again, just no energy, just not a lot of leadership. Careless with the ball. Just I don't know. That was more frustrating to me. It was just not just that we lost, but how we lost in my eyes. So I mean, would you kind of get that?
Yeah, I mean, State was in full control going down the stretch, and it literally looked like we were just passing it straight to Princeton. I mean, it made no sense, and I think it was, like you said, it was indicative of how the season has gone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like the talent is there. I mean, we're still young. We're playing 8 people now, and I'm still mad at the inbounds play with 16, 18 seconds left. You have to get the ball just inbounds. Why are we throwing a lob into the paint to Sanaya Rivers? Makes no sense. And, I love Westmore. I'm not talking bad about him, but you just had to get the ball in. And two, why? I get why Jakia Brown-Turner was the one passing it in. She's your senior. That's your leadership, but she is your best free throw shooter. There's no reason why she should be passing the ball in. I think it's just been a season of bad decision-making, both on the court, off the court. And it really just finally came full circle and just showed itself at a really bad time. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they would have went on to beat, I think it was Utah, who they played in the next game.
Yep.
But it was one of those games where you felt like State had all the momentum. Azad James was doing her thing. She had a couple steals there leading down the stretch. She had a crossover pass to Jada Boyd. And you're like, okay, we'll win one. It'd be something good for this team because they're disappointed with how the season went. Mm-hmm. And then they hit the 3. And it's just and even then you had 2 fouls to give. So it's like you could have fouled before even letting them attempt a shot.
Right.
I don't know. It's just, as much as it was as bad to lose, and especially that way, it was almost like maybe as a fan, it's like, okay, now we can get into the off season. We can figure these things out, right? We can figure out everything that went wrong with this year. Westmore is going to reload. They have a big class coming in. I think Lacey Seal was a Gatorade Player of the Year for Oklahoma.
Yep.
So you have these people coming in, or these girls coming in. So I guess I'm trying to, look at the positive of it. It's like, now you get to regroup.
Yeah.
Everyone was hurt. Diamond was hurt. So, but yeah, it was tough. It was very frustrating because we're so used to, the women's being great, 3 straight ACC championships. So it's like you have one of these years, and it's like, they're going to be better, and they will be this year.
I feel like Ryan got a sneak preview of our recording that we just did last night because he had a lot of that stuff. And the cross court passes we kept throwing in that game, it just made no sense. Especially for a team. We do have some young people, but we also have a very senior, like, with all the transfers that came in, and Jakia and Jada, like we just made like freshman, sophomore mistakes in those games, like mistakes that should never have been made, and that the basketball IQ of those players just seemed like to drop like 40 points in that game for whatever reason. We have smart players, so it was baffling, and like Ryan said, it was the season full circle. The game had moments of brilliance, and then we had moments of what are we doing? And I, for one, I'm kind of thankful we took the horse back and shot it and just got on with it, and just we can get right.
It's kind of odd too, coming down the stretch. It may have been the final minute, or it may have been the inbound pass. And we were talking about it. Like, Isaiah James wasn't even in the game. Like, she had been your offense in the second half, and she wasn't even in the game on offense. And you would assume she would be one of the freshest because she sat out, I think it was the whole second quarter, but after she hurt her ankle.
Yep.
And she wasn't even in there. And it may have been around one of those possessions when Hayes kind of dribbled it to the baseline, got caught, and turned it over. And you're looking, and you're like, where's James at? She wasn't in foul trouble. Why are we taking our offense off the court? It's just like one of those things, man. It was just frustrating because they're better than that.
Well, and especially too, like when I think about the Notre Dame game and the ACC tournament, that just again is just another frustration piece, because I still remember, like, not to call one thing out, but just one play that still stands in my head was when Jada Boyd missed basically an open layup, late in the game, and it's like, oh, Jada, like, you're a senior, like, it's AC tournament, you got to make that play. It's a layup, it's an open layup, and then again, just late in the game where we were fighting back, and I mean, even like the announcers like, well, like, like State's got a shot, they're not out of it yet, but yet just from all the players' faces, it was like, no, like it's over, we're done.
Yeah, The only thing I would counter with Ryan with Isaiah James being in, she only shoots 64% from the free throw line, but with that being said, she's been probably your most steady player over the last 3 or 4 games of the season. So I feel like she's been progressing throughout the season into, just, I think you have to ride with your hot end at some point. Sometimes, I know numbers make sense and analytics, and people are so stuck on those things, but sometimes you have to play your gut. And I agree with Ryan. I thought she was the better play at that point.
And plus, she's one of your better ball handlers. You basically have her and Rivers. Those are your only two. I mean, and to be fair, I mean, they're not both point guards, and that's nothing to them. I mean, they're scoring guards. That's who they are. So, like, to me, you got to have at least your dribblers out there to make decision making. James has shown flashes of being a great passer. But I mean, that's just me. So I'm not the coach.
It's easy to do this though on Monday, right?
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, and again, this isn't, like, bash, but I mean, it's just fact, it just is what it is. I mean, we're go ahead, Michael.
And I think Westmore, he knows that. I mean, in the post-game press conference, he came out and said, yeah, we tried to go for the knockout punch there on that last play, and when we really should just try to get it in bounds and
right.
Line.
Yeah.
So
Well, he's from Texas and he's a gambler, so sometimes and I get it. If it works, he's a genius. If not, he's second guessed on a Monday on a podcast with 4 dudes, right? So
exactly, yeah. So I want to kind of knock out some of these comments. So Infinite Hate said, "I'm an IPS premium subscriber. Read some of Ryan's articles, but never seen a face to the name." So there we go. Yeah. And then Wolfpack Crazy said, "What's up? Go Pack all day." Infinite also says, "All the highs mentioned are good. One more for me is Marley Starliper entered to run 1,500 and 5,000 at the Raleigh Relay this coming Thursday, Friday. She's battled injuries for a while, now healthy. That's definitely awesome to see. Looking to see her back." And then Russell, which kind of Michelle kind of piggybacks off of, says, "Obvious chemistry issues this year didn't improve. How do you address this as a staff?"
Well, you're gonna see a lot of those individuals not on the team next year just through attrition, right? I don't,
Yeah.
And who knows? It was weird. It was a weird.
It'll be interesting to see who the leaders are going to be next year. Because again, obviously you're losing Jada, you're more likely losing Jakia, and obviously Rivers gone, Mimi's gone, Camille's gone. So does Isaiah James step up? You definitely hope that Diamond kind of is a huge leader in the locker room for next season. But I also kind of heard, is there any truth at all to the potential of Diamond transferring?
I haven't heard anything. That does not seem likely at all.
Okay.
Well, remember, if she transfers, she has to sit out this next time.
She's already transferred once. So,
you only get one, so that wouldn't make sense.
Okay.
Not saying it's not possible, but it just, because she only has 2 years left, so then she would only have one left. So I'm not so sure. But again, anything's possible with these young ladies and young men nowadays, whether it's, being
NIL.
flirted with NIL, with, quote unquote better opportunities. You never really know what these individuals are thinking about. So,
well, and again, I mean that was just a tweet here and there that I kind of saw, kind of hinting. But also too, I'm saying, I mean, she just did a commercial with Powerade, and she's done some other big deals as well. So I mean, I'm sure she's not hurting from an NIL perspective. But also too, because I mean, going into next year, it's her team. I mean, you're looking at Diamond, it's your team. Like this is. And I mean, I'm sure she's going to be working with Wes and the coaching staff to be like, all right, like, let's get a great team. Let's build some pieces around these freshman class we have coming in, the people we have returning, and, let's get back to being a top 5 team, which is the bar that we set. So the last thing which I want to kind of ask, Ryan, is, I mean, do you think that a bar of like what's your bar every single year for this team? Like, because I feel like that we've kind of entered that level as a program where, I mean, saying every single year that, like Notre Dame, like they've been to a ton of Sweet 16s over the last 10, 15 years.
Well, they got a national championship too.
And they have a national championship too. Like, I mean, is it fair to say we should be close to that level every single year?
Yeah, and I think the difference is women's basketball is a little bit different, it seems like, than men's basketball, where you can have the same team just great every single year.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, it's, I think Wes has elevated the expectation level, not just from his team, but from the fans to a point of where we should either be winning the ACC or at least competing. But I think a good thing for the sport is that it seems like the ACC in general has gotten a lot better. So you have Notre Dame, you got Duke now, who's been phenomenal. I hate to say it, and they lost today, but UNC, they've been good. Louisville is always good. So it's like, and Virginia Tech, they just won the ACC. So it's like you have a very good conference. So, you can't dominate it as easily as maybe UConn might have. But at the same time, your expectation is you're either winning the ACC or you're competing for it or in a very good position.
Well, the crazy thing is about 2 weeks ago, I was looking at the women's college basketball national championship odds. And literally, again, this was even before the field was announced, and South Carolina was a minus 175 odds to win the national championship, meaning you literally have to bet $175 to win $100 if they win the national championship. I mean, that's bonkers. Like my wife was watching their game against South Florida yesterday. I'm like, it's around 32, babe. Trust me, you're not sweating right now. You're not sweating whatsoever.
With them, you're betting the over under / the spread, right? It's not about if they're going to win. It's like if they're going to cover or get the
exactly there.
But Ryan was talking about how good the ACC is, and we kind of talked about it yesterday on our recap. 9 teams in the tournament. That just goes to show that we finished 8th in the conference at 9-9, and we finished 20-12. That's 8th place in the ACC. So there's a lot of good competition, and like Ryan said, it's only getting better every year.
Yeah, and there was a couple teams on the bubble because I know Syracuse almost got in. Basically they beat State, they get in, and if not, they're out.
Correct. Yeah, they finished 19-12.
Yep. So with that being said, definitely I know that a lot of people on here with us again continue to send in your questions, thoughts, but I know that a lot of people are definitely wanting to talk some men's basketball here, and I know we do too. So but we actually have some tweets of the week that we want to kind of use to help kind of propel this conversation. So with that being said, we'll jump into it. So here we go. All right, so our first tweet of the week here from Jacob Troutman. This is kind of a little bit of a long one, so kind of for those who are listening, I do apologize, but we'll do the best we can to kind of summarize this. But basically saying you can have legitimate critiques about Kevin Keatts, which we'll definitely talk about here, but his offense isn't one of them. His Ken Pom adjusted efficiency rankings have ranked 21st, 34th, 42nd, 63rd, 59th, and 37th in his tenure at NC State. So the quote-unquote ISO AAU ball offense is actually pretty effective year over year. And I mean, we talked about this a good bit. So Ryan, I'll kind of, let you kind of piggyback off this, so we don't, say a lot of the same things you said in these episodes this week. But I mean, to me, I think it just goes to show more of how great of talent that Keatts is able to bring in, more than necessarily the offensive coaching per se. Because I mean, basically, this tweet is saying not that he actually does a lot of great play calling, but just more of that the ISO ball that they're playing right now, it's still effective, even though it's not pretty, even though it's not, doesn't necessarily jump out at you. That's still, effective, which then I mean, efficiency is key. If you're able to put the ball in the basket in an efficient manner, then it's tough to really complain about too much otherwise.
Yeah, and I think if you go back and look at some of those years, especially when they ranked up high, they were statistically near the top in the ACC in terms of steals. So I think a lot of the offense is indicative of their defense, getting out and running. So to kind of put it in perspective, if you go back and watch the Pittsburgh game, there's so much to unpack with this offense stuff, because I opened up a can of worms with people on Twitter with my tweet. But it's like, you can pass the ball as much as you want. You can rotate the ball. But if you don't have dudes that are good enough to make a shot, it doesn't matter, right? So if you go and look at the Pitt game, there were numerous open shots from Clark, Joyner, Morcell that didn't go in. We passed the ball, had great ball movement, but sometimes the ball you just don't make it.
Yep.
And I know it's easy to cherry pick the Creighton game and be like, oh, we only had 3 assists. But overall, I think they averaged 13.7 assists a game this past season. Number 2 in points per game behind Miami by like half a point or a point. And they were number 1 in total offense. So it's like, you can be upset that we don't pass the ball enough, but passing the ball enough also doesn't mean that we'll be better, because, I mean, technically we're already like the best offensively in the ACC. So, I mean,
more important, points or assists.
Right. So, like I said, at the same time, you need to have shooters. You need to have dudes that make those shots. And I'm pretty sure that season we finished 63rd was one of those years where we had like no one on the outside that could make a shot to save their lives. So it's one of those things. Keatts has shown to be able to recruit, and I think a lot of the cases of like Sadiq Bey leaving, Josh Hall not coming, was because of all the NCAA stuff. Because to me, if I'm a 5-star recruit, I wouldn't want to go to a school where you don't know if, 1, you're going to be able to play, and 2, if you're even going to be able to go to the NCAA tournament if you qualify for it.
Right.
So he showed this past year that he can get a group of guys together. I think Joyner was like one of the top transfers. And, we're talking about transfers, but Smith still came back. Smith could have easily left, but they got him to come back. So I'm going to be interested to see who they get to come back this year. But it's just funny how we pick on the offense when statistically we've been pretty good on offense.
And for context, those numbers are out of 352 to 358 teams in Division I.
Yeah, I think even now we're up to like 366. Like,
there's some teams that are in transition. Officially, you're right. It's like 362, but only 352 were eligible for the tournament this year. But
which is a crazy amount of teams. I think people see, the 63rd, 59th, and they think in football terms when there's 128 and 129, something like that. It's like, no, there's basically 3 times the amount of teams in basketball.
Yeah. And that's why I just kind of wanted to give that context, because that does matter, to your point, Ryan.
Yeah, that means our offense has been in the top 17% of all college basketball teams every single year.
Wow,
that Keatts has been here. So I mean, it's easy to pick on the assists, but just because it's never going to be that high in Keatts' offense.
It's low hanging fruit too.
Works. But some of the trade off is the turnovers are low, because if you're passing the ball more, that's more opportunities for turnovers, and it seems like Keats would rather have a player go one-on-one, win the one-on-one matchup, get a shot up, than, okay, every offensive possession we have to have 3 or 4 passes, risk the turnover and not even getting a shot up. So there's trade-offs with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like too, that people, I mean, if we're going to talk about offensive efficiency, I mean, Virginia's got to be pretty low. I mean, just in terms, and even though I've said publicly that I love watching Virginia's offense, at the end of the day, I mean, you talk about, that Duke championship game, man, they could not score to save their life. So it's like, hey, at the end of the day, even the most prettiest offenses doesn't necessarily get the job done, which at the end of the day, it could be the most, if it could be the ugliest offense I've ever seen, but if you're scoring 80, 90 points a game, I mean, hey, I'll take it. I'm not complaining about that whatsoever. So,
and conversely, right? Like, what did UVA do in the first round?
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how you get there. And at the end of the day, only one team can cut down the nets. So,
right.
Yeah. Again, it's about context and perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to kind of bring up a little bit, because obviously looking at this box score, obviously, first of all, got to give a hats off to Terquavian again, for a guy who 6 of his 7 last games before Creighton, he scored 15 points or less. And this is a guy that at one point earlier this season was averaging close to 20 points a game. And then literally me and Greg are doing the watch party for the Duke game, and I'm literally screaming at the TV going, T, you need to step up for us, brother. Jarkel and DJ Burns have won games for us. You need to finally start winning a game for us. You are good enough. You are a first-round talent. Start doing what you're talented enough to do. We're not asking you to jump through hoops. We're asking you to play ball as we expect you. We've seen you play 100 times before.
And what did you do that game?
And then, he did nothing that game. But
he didn't score until 8 minutes left in it.
Right, exactly. So it was an absolute dud, and it was so frustrating. But finally, this Creighton game, he shows up. He makes plays. Now, the one thing which, I do got to talk about, is that obviously I think one of the biggest things that hurt us was honestly EB and DJ dealing with foul trouble as early as they were, for sure. So I do want to kind of, let's go ahead and take care of the low-hanging fruit here. From a very biased perspective, and I'm curious if Ryan, maybe James Henderson, will do another breakdown like you did with the UNC game or whatever. But there was 2 sets of refs. There was a set of refs that were standing on the Creighton side of the court, and then there was a different set of refs that were standing on the NC State side of the court. Greg and I said multiple times that it just wasn't called the same way, And now is that excuse? No, but it's just. You can't help but ignore. You can't not ignore it. It was just there. It was too obvious. It's been a problem the whole season. I know that a lot of people besides the state are talking about it, being like, is one of the issues with ACC just honestly the frustrating referees this season have been terrible. There's not a single team in the ACC that's been happy with the referees this season.
Yeah, I was watching one of the NCAA tournament games. I forgot who was playing. And I watched a dude just swipe at a ball after the team got the defensive rebound. And I looked over and I was like, State has been called for a foul on that almost every single game. Why is it not being called here? But going back to the Creighton game, I think State got up 7, and then it was 4 straight fouls, 2 on Burns and 2 on Ebby. So I know the one on Burns, he clearly pushed the dude. But
that one was bad.
The whistle after Burns has the ball and passes the ball. You call the foul when the foul occurs. The second one, they called him for a push off and got the offensive rebound. I think that was bullcrap. That was a bad
call.
I agree.
Obviously the first one should have been a foul, but it was called so late. And then the second one was just Burns is bigger than the dude. He had position, and he got the rebound. And I don't know if it's one of those things where statistically on paper, State fouls a lot, and I'm sure refs know this.
Mm-hmm.
And
they never look at the tendencies.
Right. So you see the tendencies of teams, and you see, this team fouls a lot. So, it's human nature, right? You're thinking in the back of your mind, okay, I know this. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's me being a conspiracy theorist. But
I don't think so.
I mean, again, there's no doubt that it seemed like T and Burns had a reputation that was built as the season went. Like it seemed like earlier, once like when DJ Burns was really starting to kind of break out, that there wasn't really that many charges called on him. But then all of a sudden, come later in the season, pretty much any time a player would flop, it was charge, and it's like,
and I think it goes back to human nature, right? I see this huge dude.
Yeah.
And this dude that's smaller than him,
he had to have done something.
He's getting pushed around. It's got to be a foul. And so I think that's the same thing with Smith when he goes for layups, right?
Yes.
He's to the ground on every single layup. And I think in the back of their mind, either this dude is falling down because he's smaller or he's flopping, not because he's getting fouled.
Yeah, right.
Again, I mean, I could just be thinking that way, but I mean, human error plays into sports a lot because humans.
Yeah, but I would also say, Ryan, I think it's a combination of the both, right? Like, I don't think it's always them flopping, and I don't think it's always them just falling over. So,
sure,
the law of averages said you got to find a happy medium in there somewhere, and it just doesn't seem to ever go the way of State
between both teams, right? Correct. So it's like it doesn't get called from a State with red glasses on. It seems like it doesn't get called for State, but then on the other side, you see either equal contact or lesser contact getting called for fouls. And it's just like, what is going on? Like Smith got fouled on that 3 that the dude hurt his ankle out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you got to let the guy fall. You have to let the shooter come down in his spot. And obviously he didn't, right?
Exactly. Like that rule's always been in place. At the end of the first half, Joyner getting pulled on his hips and then it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we calling?
And then DJ sneezes on Kalkbrenner and he falls over like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's like unreal.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do have
Macon fan.
Yeah. So we do have Macon here in the chat who unbiasedly says Tuffy Talk is the best podcast for fans out there. So that I mean that means a lot coming from him, right?
Only next to IPS, right?
Yeah, only next to and then Macon says, seriously though, my thought still seems like there's too much ISO ball in my opinion. It works great when you have players like Joyner, T, and Burns, but that doesn't always happen, which get that. Again, it just goes back to which again we kind of talked about. We really want coaches to take good players and make them look like great players. We want coaches that take great talent and make them look like superstars, and elevate the talent.
So I will say one thing to that note. Obviously I'm not going to be like, no, I don't want to pass more. I think the biggest gripe I have about our offense was we don't run set plays for guys. At least it doesn't seem that way, right? So we set the hot ball screen, we kind of rotate the defense a bit. And then if we can't get any penetration, then it seems like the possession's over. To me, I felt like we should have ran more plays or more possessions for more sell, right? So it seemed like we only got shots either on offensive rebounds or on fast breaks. It was a kick. Yep. Right. So, back when we had Scott Wood, the famous play of where he would run up through the lane and you'd close the elevator doors. And
give him a curl.
The key. Yeah. And it seems like for our offense, we don't run set plays for dudes. It's basically we're going to set the hot ball screen. We're going to move the defense a bit and rely on our guards to make plays for other players.
Yep.
That's my best right.
But Ryan,
Greg, let me say one thing too, just to kind of prove the point. I'll let you go. Is that Jarkel Joyner shot 5 of 18. He was 0 for 5 from 3. So he just obviously it was just not his day against Creighton. But you literally have Casey Morsell, who over the season, even if he actually, looked like he struggled to shoot a 3 late in the season, he still shot over 41% from the 3 over the season, which is crazy. He shot 4 for 6 from the field and was 1 for 1 from 3. He only shot 1 3-point shooter. A 41% 3-point shooter over the season shot 1 3-pointer.
He had the frustrating one that he made and had stepped out of bounds. So it should have been 2 for 2. And then he stepped out of bounds, but we never saw the camera angle.
Yeah, exactly. Conspiracy theory.
Yes. I got a hold of this.
Yes. So go ahead, Greg.
No, I was going to say, Ryan, I think to your point, too, you mentioned the great Scott Wood. I think we as State fans get so spoiled seeing that one guy, right? And you're thinking, well, everyone should be Scott Wood, right? If you shoot a 3, you should be able to hit every single one. And So we tend to, even as fans, just want to compare players to other players, and I don't always think that that's a fair comparison. The one thing I will say about this team is I always thought that Scott Wood took intelligent threes, whereas like Jarkel and T would kind of put up shots and just be like, "What are we doing?
Game.
Oh, it's in. Good.
Yeah.
Whew, gosh."
Yeah.
You know, and but I will say, give credit where credit's due. I thought we took very intelligent shots against Creighton. I think maybe we only had, in my opinion, one bad three. But I thought Smith and Joyner played very disciplined as far as their shot selection. Maybe too much, like with Joyner, and then obviously Morcell as well.
And looking back on, what frustrates me the most, and like I just kind of thought about this. If Kalkbrenner is contesting every single layup, where the hell is Burns and Ebby at? Like, why are you not in a position off the pick and roll to get an offensive rebound if you're going to be the next biggest dude down in the paint? Like, we have when Smith is driving like that, you're getting the defense out of position. You have basically Smith getting double teamed by the point guard, 7-2 center. Where's our big man at to get offensive rebounds and putbacks? I think
unfortunately that's Burns isn't. I mean, again, I don't know what his vertical is, but I'm assuming it's probably not too much.
Unless there's a donut.
Unless, wow, So it just unfortunately, I think the combination of the dude being 7 foot and DJ doesn't have the biggest vertical, and the fact that he was dealing with foul trouble, and obviously he has a reputation that he was obviously dealing with that game. So I think it was just like, listen, like, I'm going to trust T that ball goes in, but if not, I don't know if I really want to risk a foul because this is going to be a tough rebound getting it over a 7 foot dude,
And to Ryan's point, real quick, EB, Burns, and Ross combined 7 rebounds.
Oh, don't tell me.
Yeah. And I think that's really where we missed Deuce this year because,
that was my next point.
Burns is efficient in the post. But in the pick and roll, he's just not quick enough. He's just not quick enough to get off that. And he's way more athletic, obviously, but he just doesn't have the basketball IQ to be know where he needs to be. Yeah, and Dusan would have. I think
Dusan would have been
a lot different if he's healthy the whole year.
Yeah, and conversely, Jack Clark was our leading rebounder as he was a lot of the times when he was in there.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. So again, it just goes back to that, it's tough to, you never want to, say, it would have been so much different if, you don't want to do all that because then we still were good enough to win more games than we did. I mean, we were good enough to go ahead.
My biggest what if is if Joyner makes that 3 on the fast break after Smith got that.
Yes, that's what we were talking about.
We talked about that.
Yeah,
like that would have tied the game, right?
Yeah, it would have tied the game, but instead, I think Creighton came down and hit a contested 3.
Yep. 6 point swing.
And I think the next possession, Morcell had stepped out, unless I'm remembering.
I think you're pretty close.
But then Creighton ended up hitting another contested 3 out of an inbound play where they hit Kalkbrenner on the right side, rotated it back. That's my biggest what if because I'm like,
well, especially because before Joyner shot that 3. I think you might have said, but like we basically blocked Kalkbrenner. So it was like whoa, we stopped him. And then it went right from that to 2 seconds later, an uncontested 3-point from Jarkel. And you knew that, again, Greg and I were in the medios that, dude, if Jarkel would have hit that 3, the roof would have gone flying off of Remedios. Like, seriously, it would have literally flown off the buildings. And and again, so that's why you're sitting there going, Jarkel's been one of our better, momentum shooters. Look at UNC. Again, if the momentum's there, he comes through for us most of the time. So
even at the end of that Duke game.
Yeah, obviously, thinking back on it when he didn't hit it, it's like, okay, maybe you wished Casey would have shot that, but it's like, in the moment, he's a senior, he's a great 3-point shooter. You can't really be too upset about him shooting that ball. So, yeah. But
hey, Ryan, just so you know, you're spot on with your everything. I just pulled up the play-by-play, and you're right. It's exactly what happened.
It's just embedded in my emotions.
Yeah, right.
Because he's been playing you through in his head.
Well, not only that, it was such a pivotal moment where you could tie the game. They go up by 3. We step out and another 3, and then you're just like, that's it. Like you could just feel the air come out, especially when we were at the medios. You could just go,
right.
So.
Yeah, and it was funny too, seeing the people upset, and I don't call out accounts. I'm not that. You guys probably saw it too. Upset about us giving up with 30 seconds left, down 9, and not fouling. I'm just like, man, like this team just put it all out there, right? And it is what it is, man. And I think I've said it in previous shows. You know, the '83 championship was the best thing and the worst thing to happen to state.
I still use that quote.
It's because you had a miracle championship, but now I think part of state fans believe we can win any game or we can go on any kind of run, and it's like a once in a lifetime stretch.
Especially when you invented the fouling at the end of the game, right? Because we literally invented that strategy. So it was like, well, if it worked in '83, it has to work in 2023. And by the way, that was a team that shot 78%.
And it's like if Joyner hits that 3 that he took with like 35 seconds left, and you go down 6, we're going to foul.
Even talking about that,
right. But at the same time, you had dudes in foul trouble, so it's like you didn't have fouls to give.
9, right? You're down 9. You foul. They make both free throws. Then it's an 11-point lead with 30 seconds left.
Right.
Game over.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So got to kind of round off. So Michelle kind of talks about the tendencies that the referees called, and how it's definitely going to be important that if DJ Burns does come back, we got to figure out a way to get that tendency flushed out of the referees' heads. Whether that's DJ Burns slimming down some. I don't know what that is.
Well,
exactly,
I also think too, and we've talked about this, and I don't know if we even talked about it in the end of recap. Because of Dusan's injury, he had to slide into that 5, where I think he's better suited to the 4, and so then he's not having to probably bang as much with their better interior post guys. So,
yeah, definitely a possibility for sure. And then go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say too, and you remember when we had Dusan, we would play both of those dudes.
Dude.
And it's very similar to what Duke was doing with Lively and Filipowski.
Yeah.
I mean, it just like, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I think if we had Dusan and Clark wasn't out half the year, I think it would have been a whole different team.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Here's the thing: you probably win 1 or 2 games, you get a better seed. You're not playing Creighton in the first round. How about them apples?
Exactly.
Yeah, true. So then Macon kind of adds the point saying we definitely need to add 1 or 2 more pay players in the offseason to back up DJ, assuming that Dusan doesn't come back. But again, that's still to be determined. So we'll kind of wait to see what happens with that first.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Ryan?
With Dusan coming back?
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he's gone.
Yep.
I think it's leaning more one way than the other. It's the same thing with a lot of these guys with COVID years. You're so old now.
Yep.
You get to a point you're like, I don't want to be in college anymore.
Yep.
And we've talked about it before. We're extremely loyal to NC State, but the reality is, this is like Dusan's 3rd team. So I think to him, it was a way for him to make a bigger name for himself. And he just got married. He's an older dude. So I think he's an overseas kind of guy, and he's from overseas.
Yep.
And he's had 2 different major injuries to his knee. That's pretty big.
And here's the other thing I will say: because of the visa he was on, he's not NIL eligible. So he's not like he can make money off of his stuff because of the visa he's on. So again,
I've never heard that. That's fascinating, Greg. For you, man.
Yeah. I found that out at the meet and greet, because I was like, well, why isn't he here? And I was told that he's not eligible. So
it's like, I'd love for him to come back.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm not going to fault him for not coming back, because I completely understand.
Yep. 100%. And then Ryan asked the question: do y'all think a defensive anchor is a top priority for next year? Creighton's big man was really good at getting his long legs wide for his moving screens and hip checks. Anyway.
That just comes with being 7-1.
That's true.
I can't statistically remember it. I don't mean, you go ahead, Michael. You started talking first. You get it.
Yeah, I think it also depends on if Morcell and Jack Clark come back, because they're our 2 best defenders.
Yep.
You're not gonna. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, if Dusan leaves,
you bring more defense, right? You're not gonna say no.
True.
And if Dusan leaves, you definitely need to get a defensive-minded post guy to complement Burns.
Right, especially if the rumors are out there, and Ryan, you probably have much better insight, but the rumor is that maybe Greg Gant's going to move on as well. Like you said, he's another COVID older guy, and I loved his energy. Yeah, I loved his energy and defensive presence, but again, that could be another hole you have to potentially fill.
Yeah, and I think that's been, we talk about offense so much because, you can say offense wins games because you got to score. But conversely, like Keats' teams have not been good defensively ever. I think the best he ever finished was like 68th or something like that, somewhere in that area.
Low 60s.
Yeah, like it hasn't been very good. And so we talk about offense efficiency all the time, but we've never really had that defensive dude. You brought in Morcell. I love Morcell. He plays great defense. His shot's not dropping. He's still going to play defense. And you've seen flashes of our team where we play lockdown defense, Virginia Tech for the first half. Good week. So, I think you need to get someone on the defensive end because I don't think we've ever had that dude that's really been locked down. I think we've always had that one guy every year, where it'd be Helms on the wing, you had Morcell on the wing, you had Bates down low, but it's never been like a full team defense. But it's also one of the things you see a team like Virginia every year in the conference that are top 5 in defense every year, and you're like, I want that team. But it's just like one of the things I think Keats' mindset is, I'm going to score more than you, try and stop us. You got to take it both ways.
Sure. Yeah. So to kind of move on to our next we're kind of going to group 2 tweets of the week together, but kind of some major news of possible replacements. Again, there's not really been much to this, but this is just one that stood out to me. Temple guard Damian Dunn has entered the transfer portal per source, averaged over 15 points a game this season, 14.9 the previous season, a 6'5" guard from Kinston, North Carolina. Again, nothing is saying, that we're talking to him necessarily, but just this is one where it's like, again, you have a guard with some height who is a scorer, who's from the area, very interesting possibility. And then the other one that was really the biggest interest as well, which I'll bring up here as well, is the Louisville forward Jalen Withers is planning to enter the portal. Averaged 8.9 points, 5.3 rebounds a game, and shot 41.7% from the 3. Like, dude, that's multidimensional right there. Yeah. So, a lot of good options in the portal. Any others kind of stand out to you, Ryan, right now?
I think another dude to watch is going to be Dontrez Styles from UNC.
Really?
If I remember correctly, Keats was also trying to recruit him, and he inevitably picked UNC.
Yep.
I think he's from Kinston also, and we were talking about it today. I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently him and Dunn are cousins. I don't know if it's one of those things where everyone is cousins down there. Or what.
Well, because isn't that also where Brandon Ingram's from too?
Brandon Ingram's from Kinston too. Yeah. So I've heard State's heavily looking at Styles. I think it would be a take for them. So it would be interesting to see if it could be like a package deal with Dunn, since they're both from the same area and rumored family members. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything on Withers, but at the same time, you kind of pointed out the stat too. 41.7% from 3 is one of those guys that you need because you need shot makers.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think between Withers, I don't know about Withers, as much, but I think with Dunn and Styles, those are going to be 2 big guys to watch. I'm sure more will be added in because I'm sure there will be some attrition on State side with dudes leaving, with the rumored of Gant and then, whoever else, because there's still going to be a bunch of question marks. I think it'll be about a month long before we figure out who we're getting and who we're leaving. But those are some, guys are looking at.
Well, the last thing which I'll add, and Greg, and Michael, I'll let you guys get in, is when I look at Withers' stats right here, I see that he's a 41.7% 3-point shooter, but he only averaged 8.9 points a game. So that tells me that he just wasn't getting a ton of volume, which again, if you're shooting 41.7% from 3, you need to be getting some volume to really test that, that percentage. So, so that could be part of it even as well. Greg, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where we go at point guard because the guys we mentioned, none of them are point guards, and we've got to replace Joyner. You know, if we go after another kind of score first guy, or if you're looking for more of a distributor, and that the answer to that probably goes along with who else you add. You know, if you're adding more just shooters and off the ball people, you probably look for more of a distributor point guard, more of that Markel Johnson kind of guy. But if you know you still feel like you need some scoring, then maybe you go after somebody similar to Joyner who's going to be able to create his own shot and make some baskets.
Yeah, and you can always have that argument too that Keats has never had a true point guard. Basically, every point guard he has is a scoring guard. You know, Jarkel Joyner, we love him, but he's a scoring guard. He's, you know, I think he's close to a point guard, but he's not a true point guard. He's not a pass first guy. He's never had a pass first dude. Even Markel, I mean, he's going to shoot the ball.
He's the closest, yeah. I mean, he
I think Markel's the closest.
He led the ACC in assists that 1 year, but I mean, he still, I think he's still technically like he was looking to score first.
Well, yeah, and even Keats would say, "I wish he would shoot more. I wish he would shoot more." So I mean, that was obvious that. But I was looking at Wither's stats here, and I mean, he averaged 25 minutes a game. So I think to your point, Leighton, I just don't think he took a large volume of shots. And obviously that wasn't a very good Louisville team. So who knows? The more underlying things there, he might not have had a lot of support system there to kind of help him in his game. Well, I am definitely interested because if you. I don't know, Ryan, and I'll ask you this too. Is this a fork in the road for Keats? Is this the year that we either ride or die with him coming up?
Yeah, I mean, to break a lot of people's hearts, he's not going anywhere after this year.
Not this season.
He'll be here next year, no matter what.
Or next year?
So he's going to be in this tough situation, right? Mm-hmm. So everyone's expectation this year was make the tournament. Okay, we made the tournament. So it's like, where do we go from here? So we say we make the Sweet 16 next year. We go from there. Are you setting expectations where he has to keep progressing, or are you setting a standard of where he's creating his own standard, like with Doran, where you expect to be good every year and you accomplish it? So, and Keats knows that, right? He knew he had to win back at fan base this year, and he did. And of course, there's always going to be people upset. I don't blame them. I mean, I would like to see us go further than the first round. But it's going to come to a point where it's like, where are we happy with what we're meeting in terms of quality? I would like to see us make it to the quarterfinals of the ACC or the finals. And I'd like to see us make it to the Sweet 16 and do that consistently every year. And I'm happy because the reality is it's hard in college now to have a team every year winning everything, which is right. I was so amazing what Wes Moore did because that really doesn't happen much anymore, especially in Power 5.
True.
And so now I think with the NCAA stuff behind him, he can recruit more effectively. And with NIL, and there's a lot of support for State's basketball and NIL. So I think it's a thing where they can get their guys. There's no turnover on the coaching staff. You're keeping all your coaching staff. So basically, next year you need to really succeed because you can't make it back to the NCAA tournament and lose first round.
Right. Well, and
be like, we're not getting anywhere.
Right. Well, and a couple things I'll say. First of all, I kind of view my bar for Keats as kind of like the metaphor I would say is kind of like when on American Ninja Warrior, for those who watch the show, there's this one thing that they have to do where like they basically like have like this chute, the two walls on the side, and they basically like jump and put their feet and arms up, and they're kind of like having to work their way up. And then as they're going, there's this platform that kind of follows them. Now it's not right underneath him, but it's kind of a couple feet below them. So that way, if they fall, they're not falling all the way back down, but just a little bit. And so to me, with Keats, it's kind of like I don't need you to do exactly what you did or more, but just it's like, listen. At the end of the day, I need to see an overall gradual incline. I can't see a peak and then going back the opposite direction. Because with Doran, I mean, and that's the thing, being a part of the program, Like, it was clear when there were times where Dorn's back was against the wall. Like, if you want a job, you need to win this game or you need to get this done. And every single time, and there was multiple times that was the case, he got it done. Whether it was beating Notre Dame in the Hurricane game, whether it was beating UNC the Mitch Trubisky year, whatever, there was a couple different times where it was like, you need to get this, and he did.
Yeah.
So for me with Keats, it's like, listen, two things. First of all, Boo Corrigan made it very clear coming in that football and men's basketball was a priority. Now, I mean, do we necessarily agree that obviously that we should put all eggs into the men's basketball and football basket? Of course not. Again, that's the Tuffy talk. I mean, again, we support all the teams, and all teams definitely do still deserve support. But also too, I mean, I've talked with multiple pretty high ranked Wolfpack Club members who, say like men's basketball is an importance to them. And at the end of the day, if it comes down to it, they're willing to support Boo with, the decision to move on if needed be. Basically saying, I mean, listen, like if we don't make it to the tournament next year, if we don't make progress next year, then it's tough to say, okay, can we really continue? Because at some point, especially with UNC and how they're struggling, but also too now seeing that Duke has a diamond in the rough in John Shire. I mean, again, got to give a hats off, man. John Shire's done an amazing job this season. It's like, listen, we can't miss this opportunity, man. Once again, like we can't just let Duke and UNC rise up and then we're just still stuck here in the bottom. We got to rise up with them.
But in fairness, Shire only got to the second round. Like,
true, but he won ACC championship.
I mean, okay, but it's a down ACC. If you listen to all the talking heads,
but it's also his first year.
It still counts. I get it. It still counts.
Yeah.
But there's still chinks in the armor for both of those programs. Like, let's not sleep on, like, oh my gosh, they're the second greatest coming of Coach K and Roy
but it's just that there have been huge bumps up, whether it was UNC last year make it to a national championship, which obviously I'm not I'm not backing them up. I'm just saying they had a big, like, that was like a whoa, and then with Duke it was like, whoa, we won an ACC championship, we went undefeated at home.
But again, if you look at it, like you're saying, Carolina made it to the national championship game. They took a step back this year in year 2.
Correct.
Shire, year 1, won ACC championship. Nothing to say that he's not going to take a step back next year as well. The door is still wide open. I mean,
But
now is the time to strike. If you're going to strike, now is the time.
100%.
Yeah, like the reality is Duke's not going to have a top 5 or get 3 of the top 5 dudes every year, and that's exactly what Shire was playing with. Now, I can guarantee is if Keats could get 3 of the top 5 dudes, he'd be probably replicating the same thing, because basketball is just that way. It's just the nature of basketball.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you guys said, and especially the point you were making, Leighton. You can't, at this point in Keats' tenure, you have to hold the same level of success or progress. You can't have another down year. You just can't, right?
Yeah.
But I would argue that you can't, like Ryan was saying, I don't think you can finish 5-6 in the ACC, get a tournament bid, and bow out in the first round and say that that's progress. That's because it's not. Like, the next step is
that's what I'm saying. He's got to win a game.
Yeah. Because 100%. Guess what? He still hasn't won a game in the NCAA tournament.
Right. So, which again, we should have much bigger aspirations.
Well, and that's going to be the knock, right? Until you win that first game, everyone's going to say, well, you can't win the big game, blah, blah, blah. Look at his defensive efficiency. We don't pass the ball. We get 5 assists a game. Like you're just going to dwell on all the negatives. And I think that's what we're trying to push through is, like, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, again, we talked about it. This is the most ACC wins since 1974. And if I'm not mistaken, that was another magical year. I might have my years off.
You just, at the same point, you have to have a sustained level of success to then bump up to, right? I mean, as much as we would all love it, like, State is not in a championship or bust position right now as a program. I mean, at least not in the last 3 years?
Yeah, 1987, right?
I just think that's unfair to say if you're not winning an ACC championship or a national title every single year, the season was a failure. Like, I don't think, as much as we would love to be there, we're just not there right now. So
I don't think we've earned that, right? Again, like Ryan's saying, with all of the cloud of the NCAA that we've had the last few years, this was really the first year that he didn't have that cloud over him. And
heading into the season, right?
Heading into the season, correct. And so, look, We were picked to finish 10th. We finished 6th. We weren't even on the radar last year after the tournament to be early pickings for bracketology, none of that stuff. Like, we weren't even a blip on the radar. Again, we've exceeded expectations. Now the next step. Now, if you don't get to that next step, all right, now we can have the conversation. Like, is he the right guy? Is he not the right guy? You know, obviously we want him to be the right guy because you don't want to stick your program back another 3-4 years. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, 100%. So to kind of a couple of things, one of the biggest pieces of news, it's actually more ACC than necessarily NC State, but I thought it was big news, at least for me. The news about Mike Bray from Notre Dame going to South Florida to be the head coach. I don't know about y'all, but maybe I was wrong, but I thought he was like retiring. I thought he was like done. But
that was
I
all
also
along.
don't think that's official yet either.
Correct.
It's still
okay.
Yeah, it hasn't been,
but
no, it was always.
I mean, it makes sense. That's basically half retirement. Head coach.
I mean, you know about retiring to Florida, don't you, Michael?
Yeah.
No, it was always said that his the parting was quote unquote mutual, which it probably wasn't, right? And now he gets out of South Bend, and now he's going to a place that hasn't had a lot of success in basketball, and so maybe he can go down there, revitalize a program that hasn't seen a lot of love. And he's in the American Conference. That's not a tough basketball conference in any stretch of the imagination. It's a winnable conference,
especially with Houston leaving.
Correct. Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
12. So
and so now he's got a chance to go compete. And here's the other thing: he's not going to have the pressure that he's going to have at Notre Dame because
zero expectations.
Exactly. So if it works, it works. This kind of reminds me of Tubby a little bit. Tubby Smith a little bit. How he kind of was at a prominent program, kind of took a step back and kind of did his thing for a while. So I like this move. I do.
Yeah.
In Florida, not Indiana.
Oh yeah, guess what? No snow, no taxes.
Nope.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah, true. And then next, got to give a shout out to a former NC State women's basketball assistant coach, Aaron Bath, named the head coach of the Providence women's basketball program. Left us 2 years ago to be the assistant coach at
last year.
Last year, whatever. She left us. Whatever, you know recently. What I mean. This season that we just got done was the first season that she was not the assistant coach, and she went to be the associate head coach at Michigan, and then got an opportunity to go to Providence. So definitely happy for her. And again, I mean, it's interesting because we kind of talked a little bit about Ryan, but I mean, obviously Westmore's 65. He's about to turn 66 here at the middle end of April. And so, you're starting to kind of, look around a little bit. Like you have Lindsay Edmonds, who's, done some great stuff in her first couple of years over at Rice, who was an associate head coach at State before she left to Rice. And then you got a couple other young coaches underneath the NC State / Westmore umbrella a little bit. So, and then same thing right here, Aaron Matt, with Providence. It's like, it's definitely going to be, it's going to be a tough job for Boo whenever Westmore does decide to hang it up. Because that next hire has to be a home run. It just has to be the right person. So, yeah. So definitely interesting stuff there. But anyway, go ahead.
I'll just kind of continue the conversation. I think that's why it's so nice to have like a coach like Westmore, because as they're there, and if it's a good coach, then these guys or these girls, they go on and they coach other places and get better. So the umbrella gets bigger. With your reach. And you see that with Coach K. Granted, Coach K was there for 100 years, but I think 5 different coaches that he had under him are all head coaches, obviously with one of them being Shire. So it's like when you got these coaches that stick around for so long and they're good coaches, it at least lends you to have more of a choice when it comes to coaching, right? So, or, selecting the coach, because you rather have too many options than not having anyone, just having to settle. So,
yeah. Well, especially because, I think that NC State is right there in the conversation for one of the one of the top jobs for women's basketball right now, in terms of facilities, in terms of support, in terms of tradition. I mean, it's an easy recruiting, tool in my opinion. Raleigh, one of the top places for young adults.
Yeah.
Reynolds Coliseum, one of the most historic, buildings in all of basketball, not just women's or college, but all of basketball, period. Like it's a slam dunk, easy place to go. And so that's why for me, I think too, you got to be a little bit greedy and say, I don't even want to hire assistant coach right now. I want to hire somebody who went on to be a head coach and was successful as a head coach to be more certain that this coach it's not a throw at the dartboard. Like we feel confident going into it that they're going to be able to take over and build on the success. So,
and then if you want a fun fact about Providence women's basketball, Coach Kay Yao's sister Susan coached at Providence back in the day. So
yes.
So there's a connection there, not a big one, but I'm excited to see all of these new coaches out there and seeing what they're doing. And it's great to be able to have a bigger tree to pick from when it's time for Coach Moore to retire. And I wouldn't be surprised, because of the clout that Coach Moore has, that he's going to have a say in who gets some interviews when it's all time to bring somebody back to Raleigh to replace him.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So and I love in-games comments right here asking, is it September yet? No, it's not September yet. It's not even April yet. We even have spring game yet, and we still got baseball. So we still got a lot. But I understand the excitement about football for sure. So one also, we mentioned at the beginning, but gotta give the shout out to justice where it's due to our man Trey Turner. Who has absolutely been phenomenal, to say the least. Again, hitting 4 for 8, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, three runs, across the plate from himself alone. And it's crazy, because this is before last night's stats. But to see MLB's Twitter account tweeting about Trey Turner is, if you're Elliot Avent or Chris Hart right now, you're just you got to be drooling at the mouth a little bit, going, dude. As if we weren't already good at recruiting. Now you have this, just say, hey, any NFL player, look, any NFL player, hey, look at this.
He's legitimately a top 10 player in all of baseball.
Oh, without a doubt, a position player for sure. If you're, pitchers. Right, I like categorizing pitchers and position players, but there's no doubt he's a top 10 position player,
and more just because his age combined with how good he's playing right now. If you're any team right now, it's not like you're going after Mike Trout, who still a really, really good player, but he's also probably not really in his prime anymore necessarily. But Trey Turner, he is in his prime right now, and he's showing it. Being the face of all of Team USA baseball right now, and it's not like it's like a bunch of college players on Team USA. There's all-stars on this team, and yet all they're talking about is Trey Turner. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, you look at his stature, you wouldn't think that he could just jack a ball as far as he can, right? But his stroke and his mechanics are just phenomenal. So I would say he's probably a top 5 or 6 defensive player and probably a top 5 or 6
hitter,
offensive player. And I haven't looked at his WAR in a while, but it's got to be probably like you said, Michael, easily top 10.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So excited, for Trey, excited for NC State baseball. Again, just take a step back. Look at the players, look at the talent that Chris Hart and Avon were able to bring in before the field upgrades, before Trey Turner really starting to, get on the national boards. And now they have both of those to also recruit, and Rodon, getting paid big bags.
And we were Trey's only Power 5 offer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like JJ Watt getting, that's like a JJ Watt story for sure.
Yeah. It is crazy. I remember Trey Turner, at State, he was the shortstop, and he would just steal every base. And now he's legitimately a 5-tool player in a top 10 in the MLB.
He can do it all.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got some players, obviously not Trey Turner style, but we got some guys on that team now that they're going to, we probably have, honestly, I think we have 2 or 3 major leaguers on this squad this year. legit like have a chance to make it. So
Yep. And only thing which will kind of we need to kind of wrap this up, but just talk a little bit about baseball is that I think that again, anybody who's freaking out about baseball right now, just
that's ridiculous.
Patient. It's so early in the season, and we have so many more opportunities. Again, like even though we've lost 2 series, even though we've lost to Elon, we're still top 20, in the RPI. We're still we're still in
UVA was
great
number
standings.
14 in the country.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't like we just lost to some scrub school. Like we lost 2-1 on Thursday, which you get a hit there. Pitching was fantastic. You get a hit. You either get the win or not. Like it's crazy. Friday we were in it to like the 8th inning. We threw a couple pitchers out there, and it got to get out of our control there at the end. And then Saturday you had the winning walk-off after giving up 2 runs in the 9th. And Dom Fritton pitched a great game. And so I think you're starting to see, we need to kind of, and again, I think Justin Lawson's a really good pitcher. He kind of had a couple bad outings there against UVA. But again, that's a good hitting team. And that's a UVA team that's going to challenge probably for a number 1 seed in the ACC tournament.
100%. Yep, 100%. And then last thing as well, just like Greg said, got to give a shout out to gymnastics getting into NCAA tournament. They're heading to Oklahoma to compete in their regional. So I think it's like I think they're because basically how gymnastics works is they basically compete one-on-one versus another team, and then if you win your one-on-one, then the 4 teams who win that one-on-one compete in a duel all together at that site. So obviously if gymnastics beats this team, which I think is like Ball State or something like that, Ball State, then they'll compete more likely against Oklahoma, and basically I think it's the top 2 teams of the 4 qualify for the next round. And obviously Oklahoma is the number 1 team in the country. They average over a 198 score for every single duel. So it's it's definitely tough sledding for gymnastics.
But you don't get to finish second if you're what you're saying. You know what I mean? So you don't have to beat them.
But they're also probably gonna have to compete against like a UCLA or hey, I'm not saying they can't do it again. Hey, we just got the 2nd highest score in program history. If they do that, then heck yeah, they're right in the fight for it for sure. But but again, either way, just excited for Coach Landris. Between them finally bringing in a student section, between what we've seen, from fan support, again getting the 2nd highest score in program history. Somebody said it, just a fan supporter said it to me, which is that gymnastics can be that next NC State sport that can really take off. And I think we're right there about ready to see it. So huge shout out to Coach Landers and the gymnastics team. All right. So Ryan, first of all, I want to say thank you again for joining us, man. Really do appreciate it. Again, really appreciate you accepting our cash offer and making the time in order to be on here with us, man. I know you had a lot of options to be with, whether it was NBC or ESPN or ABC, and you chose us. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Glad to have you, man. Well, as always, y'all, just like we already kind of hinted at, we have our 2 episodes where we recap the men's basketball and women's basketball season, starting to talk a little bit about next year for both those teams. So make sure, if you do not want to miss out on those 2 episodes, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, which is free to do. So that way you're notified on all your devices whenever we go live with any new Tuffy Talk content, whether it's episodes, live streams, watch parties, whatever it is, you will not miss out on it. And then if you enjoyed this video, or if you enjoyed this live stream, hit that like button. And then also to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter or Instagram. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see y'all soon. And as always, go Pack, y'all.